Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Recha Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Leviticus, the 4th chapter. And the Lord Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a soul shall sin through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord Yahweh, concerning things which ought not to be done, and shall do against any of them. So, not knowingly, you break the commandments of the Lord. This is the protocol. If the priest that is anointed do sin according to the sin of the people, and when you look this up, they'll tell you that pretty much if the anointed priest sins, therefore bringing guilt on the people, then let him bring for his sin which he have sinned a young bullock without blemish unto the Lord Yahweh for a sin offering. And he shall bring the bullock unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord Yahweh. And he shall lay his hand upon the bullock's head, and kill the bullock before the Lord. And the priest that is anointed shall take of the bullock's blood, and bring it to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood, and sprinkle of the blood 7 times before the Lord, before the veil of the sanctuary. So he would take the blood, he would go into, pull this up here, tabernacle in the wilderness. Guess we're back with this one again. So he would go into the holy place, and before, he wouldn't go in, but before the veil, right, he would sprinkle the blood 7 times. Verse 7, and the priest shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar of sweet incense before the Lord. And that's the altar that's actually in the holy place, which is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour all the blood of the bullock at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. So after this, after sprinkling the blood and putting it on the horns of the altar of incense, he would now go out of the holy place and pour the blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering, which is out here, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he shall take off from it all the fat of the bullock for the sin offering, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, which is all the fat of the insides. With the kidneys he shall take away. So he's going to remove that from the animal, as it was taken from off the bullock of the sacrifice of peace offerings. So in the same manner in which you remove them from the sacrifice of the peace offering, that's how he would do it for this sin offering. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar of the burnt offering. And the skin of the bullock, and all his flesh, with his head, and with his legs, and his inwards, and his dung. So everything. And the dung is, sometimes when you are cleaning out an animal, it may still have dung in it that it just didn't, excrete. So basically everything else is what it's saying here. Even the whole bullock shall he carry forth without the camp onto a clean place. So after burning the fat and the kidneys and all that, you would then take the rest of the animal outside of the camp to a clean place where the ashes are poured out. Because remember, when you're doing the burnt offerings and so on and so forth, you got to gather the ashes at the end, right? And then, dispose of it. So there's a certain area for that. And that's where you would take this bullock that's already dead and burn him on the wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out, shall he be burnt. So this is the protocol if the anointed priest sins. And if the whole congregation of Israel sin through ignorance, so if the entire, community or Israel congregation they break some commandment, right, through ignorance, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly, so it's not known, and they have done somewhat against any of the commandments of the Lord Yahweh concerning things which should not be done, and are guilty. When the sin which they have sinned against it is known, so when they realize, oh shoot, we actually went off when we did this or in doing that, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for a sin or for the sin. So they would pick out a young bullock and they would offer it as a congregation and bring him before the tabernacle of the congregation. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands, because they would represent the people, shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock before the Lord Yahweh, and the bullock shall be killed before the Lord. And the priest that is anointed shall bring of the bullock's blood to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his finger in some of the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord Yahweh, even before the veil. So similar to the protocol as to when the priest sins. And he shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar, which is before the Lord Yahweh, that is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour out all the blood at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering. So once again, just like the protocol for when the priest sins, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So you go in here, you sprinkle it 7 times, you put the blood upon the horns of the altar of incense, then you come out and pour the blood at the side or the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. Verse 19, and he shall take all of his fat from him and burn it upon the altar. So remove all the fat. And he shall do with the bullock as he did with the bullock for a sin offering. So shall he do with this, and the priest shall make an atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. And he shall carry forth the bullock without the camp, and burn him as he burned the first bullock. It is a sin offering for the congregation. So that's how you handle a sin offering if the priest goes off or if the entire congregation goes off. Verse 22, when a ruler hath sinned and done somewhat through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord Yahweh, his God, concerning things which should not be done, and is guilty. So he did it without realizing it or without knowing, and is guilty. If this is a ruler, that is, or if his sin wherein he hath sinned come to his knowledge, right? So either he is found guilty, or the Lord puts it in his mind, and he realizes, oh shoot, I went off. He shall bring his offering a kid. Okay, notice the difference in the animal here. For the ruler, it would be a kid, a baby goat, right? Of the goats, a male without blemish. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the goat and kill it in the place where they kill the burnt offering before the Lord. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering. So notice, this time the priest doesn't go into the holy place to sprinkle it 7 times or put it on the horns of the altar of incense. Rather, he would put the blood on the horns of the burnt offering, or the altar of the burnt offering, okay, that is outside, and shall pour out his blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. And he shall burn all his fat upon the altar, as the fat of the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall make an atonement for him as concerning his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And so you notice here, there's a difference, right? It concerning if a priest sins or if the congregation sins, the protocol is slightly different. And with that, if you sprinkle the blood before the Lord 7 times, the body of that animal has to be burned outside the camp. But here it doesn't mention that for a ruler. Verse 27, and if any one of the common people sin through ignorance, so your average Israelite, while he doeth something against any of the commandments of the Lord, so he breaks any of the laws of the Lord, concerning things which ought not to be done, and be guilty. Or if his sin, which he hath sinned, so you did something you didn't know, but now like everybody's like, yo, you weren't supposed to do that, you went off, you're found guilty. Or if you did it, you didn't know, or you didn't realize, and then maybe later on it comes to your knowledge, right? Or if his sin which he hath sinned come to his knowledge, then he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a female without blemish. So the ruler, it would be a male, But for a common person, it would be a female, without blemish, no deformities, for his sin which he hath sinned. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering, and slay the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. And the priest shall take of the blood thereof with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood thereof at the bottom of the altar, similar to the way he would do it if a ruler had sinned. And he shall take away all the fat thereof, as the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of peace offerings. So in the same manner. And the priest shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor unto the Lord, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. And if he bring a lamb for a sin offering, so if it's not a goat, but instead it's a lamb, he shall bring it a female without blemish. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering, and slay it for a sin offering in the place where they kill the burnt offering. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood thereof at the bottom of the altar. And he shall take away all the fat thereof, as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of the peace offerings. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar, according to the offerings made by fire unto the Lord. And the priest shall make an atonement for his sin that he hath committed, and it shall be forgiven him. So Leviticus 4 pretty much covers how you're supposed to handle, sin offerings, from the level of a priest to the congregation to a ruler to the common person. So that brings us to the end of the book of Leviticus, the 4th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.